Welcome everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this is just going to be a discussion video about the Switch Mini and Pro. So for starters, let's talk about the possibility of these revisions happening. I do think they're happening, but it's important to take into consideration that until something is officially confirmed by Nintendo, we should take it with a grain of salt. Even if the rumors we're getting are based off legitimate information, plans change, so you never really know until it's officially confirmed. So take it with a grain of salt. But that all said, I do think the rumors for a Switch Mini and Pro are true, and we will be seeing an announcement for a Switch Mini really soon. And yes, I intentionally omitted Pro from that last sentence because I don't think the Pro will be coming out this year. I think it will be coming out next year, but we will be talking about both. So first, let's just talk about why I think it's happening. For starters, we've been seeing reports from different credible sites who have insider knowledge on the manufacturing process for different technologies. The Wall Street Journal, Nikkei, different companies in different parts of the world, they are hearing similar things but with different sources. That alone makes you think it's really likely that these systems are coming. But also, we're seeing a lot of different images come up for different accessories being sold by different companies around the world for a Switch Mini. That also increases the chances of it, in my opinion. Now, some of them are saying Switch Mini 2. I don't actually think that means there's going to be a Switch 2 coming out anytime soon. Nintendo's not ready for that. We're probably going to have to wait another 2 to 3 years at minimum before we're talking about the sequel to the Nintendo Switch. Another reason why I think it's fairly likely that a Switch Mini announcement is around the corner is because during a shareholders meeting, Nintendo sort of responded to all of the rumors going on about this. They said, "We acknowledge that there have been reports about this. Answering to rumors and speculations would end up stealing surprises from our customers and also be unprofitable to our shareholders, so we have no answer to that. As a general theory, we are always performing development of new hardware." This was interesting to me because they did not deny it. Normally, they deny it. They didn't deny it, which to me suggests that there's probably something happening right around the corner. But let's forget this quote, let's forget all of the images of accessories we're seeing, let's forget all of the reports from these different sites. I still think it makes sense for there to be revisions. For starters, Nintendo's always had revisions for their handhelds. Now you could make the argument that the Switch is not just a handheld, it's also a home console, it's a hybrid. True, but then let's look at the home console market. The PS4 has different variants of it, and so does the Xbox One. So why should the Switch be the only system out in the market that doesn't have multiple versions of it? It makes sense for there to be multiple versions of it. That's the market and world we live in nowadays. There are just going to be different niche audiences that are going to want more from a system that the base system doesn't really offer. So for example, the Switch, while it's a hybrid, isn't necessarily the best catered system for portable play. It doesn't have the best battery life. It's not the most indestructible system for kids. It kind of has all these different parts that can be lost and thrown about, and it's pretty big. It doesn't really fit into your pocket. So a more portable system that doesn't have all these different spare parts, that's more compact, more sturdy, better battery life, and a little bit smaller so you can fit into smaller places, might be a better idea for the successor of the 3DS, which by the way is dead. Nintendo's not publishing any more games for it, so Nintendo kind of needs to replace that, especially when you take into consideration that a lot of the handheld franchises are kind of all moving over to Switch. Animal Crossing, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Link's Awakening Remake, Luigi's Mansion, Fire Emblem. All of these games have been bigger on Nintendo's handhelds lately, yet all of these games are the big games for this year. I think that's kind of highly suggestive of what Nintendo's planning to do. They are planning to have a more portably catered Switch come out really soon. A lot of people have been saying that around September there seems to be a lot of games coming out. I kind of agree that maybe when Nintendo's going to launch this system, the initial reports were that we would be seeing a Switch Mini in summer. September is still the summer, so I could kind of see that happening and we may see an announcement really soon. But when it does come out, I do not think it will be called a Switch Mini. I think it will be called something else, maybe Switch Lite, because if it's mini, that kind of suggests that it's going to be a fraction of the size of the current Switch. I don't think it's going to be a fraction of the size. I think it's just going to be a little bit smaller, marginally, a little bit more compact. Switch Lite would make a lot more sense to me. Nintendo's used that naming before, so maybe they won't do it again, but I think Lite is more suggestive of what we're going to be getting as opposed to Mini. And on that note, I also don't think the Switch Pro is going to be called a Pro. I think maybe Switch Plus or Switch Advance is a better naming for it. They're not going to just straight up copy Sony by calling it Switch Pro like the PS4 Pro. It's going to be something a little different. But I'll talk a little bit more on that in a little bit. Let's first focus on the Switch Lite here. I think it's going to be marginally smaller. I think there aren't going to be any Joy-Cons, as the images from these different accessories we've seen, there are no Joy-Cons. It's all attached together. It's basically going to look like a Vita, it seems, which I think is fine. I think that'll be really nice, and it could be a little bit smaller than the current Switch, lighter, better battery life. It's 2.5 years since the original Switch came out. I'm sure that there is a much more efficient manufacturing process, better technology in there, so it'll be cheaper to make, and they'll be able to make a system that may be just the same power-wise, but more efficient in terms of power consumption, so it will have a much better battery life. And by the way, guys, there's pretty much no way this system is going to be weaker. Nintendo would have to like invest money into R&D to make an even weaker chipset than the current Switch model. I think it's basically just going to be a Switch, guys, just slightly more catered for portability. If you take into consideration that the manufacturing process will be more efficient by this point, 2.5 years after the original Switch, if you take into consideration that technology has advanced since then, if you take into consideration that there's going to be some missing technologies, there won't be an IR camera, there won't be that switching mechanic with the Joy-Cons, it'll just all be attached. For all those different reasons, the system should be a lot cheaper, especially if they don't include a dock or an HDMI cable or Joy-Con straps or even a Joy-Con grip. That all will take down the price, and I think a price point of $200, $199.99 US dollars, I think that's a pretty manageable price point, and that's probably the right spot to hit, especially because they need to replace the 3DS. The 3DS is dead. So I think the Switch Lite, we're calling it Switch Lite, is going to be $200. It's going to probably have about the same screen size. Maybe the bezel will be reduced a little bit, and it'll be more compact so it fits closer in together. There will be no Joy-Cons, they'll all be attached, and there will be a D-pad because since there's no Joy-Cons, there's no need for any actual face buttons. I do think there will absolutely be a way to plug in this Switch Lite into your television and so it can work like a normal Switch, but I don't think that will be a feature available from the box. I'm not entirely sure how that will work out. I'm not entirely sure if the Switch Lite will be compatible with an original dock. You may need to get a new specialized one. It's hard to say. And one of the reasons why I'm not too sure about that is because I'm not sure if Nintendo's going to go with a slider pad or a traditional analog stick for the control sticks. I think a lot of people would prefer control sticks. I would agree, I would prefer that, but at the same time, slider pads would make the system more compact, and I didn't really have a problem with them on the 3DS. I thought they worked fine, but some people don't like them, so maybe Nintendo will just go with the analog stick. I agree that is the better option, but only if you are willing to forego it being a more compact system, which is something they may want to go for with the Switch Lite. That's kind of the point. But I will say the current analog sticks on the Joy-Cons are pretty compact as it is, so they may not feel it be necessary to add slider pads instead. So we'll see what happens, but definitely a D-pad, definitely a little bit smaller, not a lot smaller, a little bit smaller, with better battery life, and that's pretty much it, and it's going to function great, and it's going to be a great successor to the 3DS. I think September is probably when it's going to come out. That seems to be the right point, and $200, I think it's great. I think it'll be great. I think it's going to be a comfortable handheld system, and a lot of people are going to love it. But what about this Switch Pro? I'm going to call it Switch Plus. I don't think Nintendo would copy Sony here and call it a Pro. I think it'll be something different, something that still implies that it's better but not a sequel, and Plus, in my opinion, would be very fitting. But aside from the name, what else can we sort of guess about this? Well, I don't think it's coming out this year. I think this year would be too early for a Switch Pro or Plus, because normally Nintendo doesn't have a power upgrade so early into a system's life cycle. Even the competition doesn't do that. I think a lot of fans would feel a little bit slighted. But a year from now makes perfect sense. That's when the competition did it. That's kind of the standard. So let's say by summer 2020 the Switch Plus comes out. I think a lot less fans will feel slighted if it comes out by that point. Now, of course, there's going to be some people that will be upset no matter what, but both of Nintendo's competitors waited at least 3 years to upgrade their systems, so I think they'll get along fine by releasing the Switch Plus next year. And on top of that, I just don't really think there's room for a Switch Plus this year, considering that the Switch Lite should be coming out this year, and all the games that are coming out for this fiscal year, like I said earlier, are more of the handheld sort of franchise variant. You don't really need a more powerful system to show them off. They're going to look and play fine just the way they are. But next year might be a little different. Of course, sure, there are some third-party games that will always need that additional power on the Switch, but for Nintendo, there could be some really big games coming out next year for the Switch. No More Heroes 3, Bayonetta 3, Breath of the Wild 2 maybe. With the next generation pretty much guaranteed to be starting up next year during holiday time, Nintendo's going to want a more powerful system showcasing its games as best as they possibly can look, so in my opinion next year just makes way more sense for the Switch Plus. But on the topic of games looking and running better on the Switch Plus, I think that's pretty much going to be its main selling point. Games on Switch Plus are going to look and run better on it. All of these Switch games will be compatible for all the different systems, and there will be no exclusivity, so those rumors of a Resident Evil 2 remake being exclusive for a Switch Plus, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think companies are going to want to ostracize the fan base, especially when there's going to be so many more regular Switch owners and Switch Mini owners as opposed to a Switch Plus owner. There just won't be that many people out there to buy an exclusive version for just a part of the Switch audience. I don't think that makes sense. So I don't think there's going to be any exclusive games. I think all third-party games will be playable across all systems moving forward. They will simply just look and run better on the Switch Plus. So games like Wolfenstein 2 and Doom and even Xenoblade 2 and Mario Odyssey that have these dynamic resolutions are all going to have a more naturally high resolution on the Switch Plus, and in terms of frame rate it'll be a lot smoother, and a lot of these things may not even require that much of an update because the system will just be naturally more powerful than the regular Switch. Will there be some games developed with the Switch Plus in mind to have that better graphical tier? Yeah, I think there will be, and I don't think that's really going to be too crazy. We're going to see multiple graphical tiers on the PS4 and Xbox One families. Even with the Switch family, you have portable and docked mode. Those are two graphical tiers right there the developers have to sort of keep into consideration. Adding one more isn't really that big of a deal. It's kind of the standard nowadays when it comes to game development. So that's not really a concern. I think it's just something to be excited about, that with Switch Plus there will be really good looking Switch games from Nintendo and third parties. But aside from power, what else could we expect? Well, I also expect the battery life to be a little bit better than the original Switch. It'll still be a portable system, it'll just be a better one. I think the screen will be a little bit bigger, reduce the bezel like everyone else says. Will the screen be a higher resolution? Probably. I think 1080p makes sense, especially if they're going to go for that $400 price point next year. That makes sense to me. By next year, the technology, I would hope, is advanced enough from the regular Switch to put out a nice improvement for a system with a better screen at $400. So I'm expecting a bigger screen, 1080p, better graphics, but not like a lot better. Maybe like Xbox One levels or close to that, something along those lines. But besides all that, what else do I think a Switch Plus could have? I mean, if it's going to be $400, which is my prediction, $400, it better have features that make it worth it for those who are paying the additional money. Now, if we go back to the original report of the revisions, it was said that Nintendo was looking to make a revision that was more catered to the core gamer. I think a more powerful system with a D-pad makes sense, so that thing better have a D-pad because that's what the core gamer wants, a D-pad, not those 4 directional buttons. And following that train of thought, I also think that the dock will be a better version of the previous dock. Will it have some sort of 1440p or 4K upscaling? That would be amazing, but I don't know if that's something that can be pulled off for $400, but I definitely think a dock will at least have an Ethernet port. That'll be really important to have high-speed internet connections for better online gaming, downloads, and cloud gaming, which is going to become increasingly more and more prevalent. And the current Ethernet adapter that plugs into the regular Switch dock kind of is a bottleneck. You can't really get too fast with that, so they need a pure Ethernet connection on that dock to get much faster speeds, especially with this booming cloud industry. They really need something to work with that, and of course this dock would still be compatible with the regular Switch, so you can still use that dock to have higher speed internet connections, so don't worry if you don't want to upgrade. So in other words, if you never plan on upgrading your Switch to a more powerful Switch, I still imagine that there will be these docks with an Ethernet connection that will feature better internet connections. Hopefully. I really hope Nintendo does that, because that would be nonsensical otherwise. And of course, there will be better internal storage. I don't think it's going to be a lot better. I'm going to say 128, but maybe it'll be 256. I'm going to say 128. But you never really know. It's Nintendo. They could really skimp us and be less than that. But I think for sure it will be less than the 32 that's available on the basic Switch. And that's pretty much where I stand right now with the Switch Lite and Switch Plus, as I'm going to be calling them. The Switch Lite will be coming out this year, maybe September. It'll be $200. It'll be marginally smaller than the current Switch. but it will have a D-pad and better battery life, and it won't be as destructible as the current Switch. The Switch Plus will come out next year. Games will look and run better on it naturally, even your older games. There will be no exclusive games for it. It will also have better battery life. It will also have a D-pad. The dock will come with an Ethernet connection, and the system itself will have more internal storage. Oh, and the screen will be a little bit bigger, a little bit better. And that'll sell for $400, and it'll come out summer 2020. That is where I currently stand with my speculation. But we'll see. I do think a Switch Lite will be announced really soon. So let me know what you guys think on that. When do you think it will be announced? When do you think it will come out? Hopefully you can come up with a consensus here and maybe we'll be right about it. So let me know, guys, in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, again, this is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye.